अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of Ramakrishna, the Great Master, or Leela Prasanga written by Shardanandaji Maharaj. We shall first go into the introduction part. Attitude of a sadhaka in incarnation. The village called Anur is situated about 2 miles north of Kamarpukur, the birthplace of the master. The goddess Vishalakshi of Anuru is living presence. The goddess there is a living presence. So the place is Anuru and the Divine Mother's name is Vishalakshi. Another name for Divine Mother, Vishala means broad. Akshi means eyes. The mother who has a broad eyes. That is the meaning of Vishalakshi. Just like we have in Madurai, Meenakshi, the Divine Mother having the eyes like that of a fish, moving about here and there, the fish in the water like that. That is the eyes, Meenakshi. Then we have this Vishalakshi. So from near the birthplace of Ramakrishna, Kamarpukur, 2 miles north of Kamarpukur, we have this Anuru. The goddess Vishalakshi of Anuru is a living presence. The people of the surrounding villages, far and near, vow, worship, and offerings to the goddess for the fulfillment of various desires. And when they are fulfilled, they come to offer worship and sacrifices at the proper time. It needs no mention that women are comparatively more numerous amongst the visiting pilgrims than men. The majority of them go with votive offerings for recovery from illness. It is even now seen that groups of village ladies of high families, while coming to pay obeisance to Vishalakshi, Mother Vishalakshi, they sing songs and tell stories about the first appearance and self-revelation of the goddess and travel across the fields without fear. So now here you can see how while you go to the pilgrimage or while you go to the different places, you can engage yourself in a positive way. The ladies or the mothers who used to go to visit the Divine Mother there, Generally, our trend is when we are going to the pilgrimages, when we are going far off places, if we get our friends to chit chat, we go on chatting and talking so many unnecessary things, whereby wasting our time and also bringing our mind from the higher level to the ordinary level. There is no thing which can drastically and quickly drain our energy than aimless talking. Generally, the trend of human beings, you can see, watch yourself, analyze yourself. When we join together, some people of our own nature, anybody for that sake, not even our own nature, any group of people coming together, you just observe your own conversation. You need not, this is not for criticism of others, but our own conversation, if we watch it, then we find that most of the time it will be paraninda, paracharcha. Para means others, ninda means criticizing, para means again others, charcha means talking about others. So, talking ill about others, talking negative things about others, criticizing others. So, most of the time, if you analyze, if you see, most of the time, 99% our conversation, our talk will be criticizing others, speaking ill of others, and talking about the negative quality of others. So, this gives a sort of joy in our mind that is called Vishaya Sukha, Vishayananda, just like there is Bhajanananda. There are so many different types of joy. So, people of the lower category, lower mind, who have not risen up to high spiritual levels, their joy is in discussing these things. So, it is called Vishayananda, Vishaya Sukha. So, they will find some sort of sadistic joy. It is called in psychology, it is called as sadism. Finding joy in the pain of others, in the trouble of others, that is called sadism. So here we get a cue. What should we do when we are together? You should make it a habit. What is that? You can see here. The ladies who used to go to visit as a pilgrimage long distances, in those days there were no any mode of transportation, just like now, auto rickshaws, taxis, cabs, and even they used to walk. That was the normal feature, that pilgrimages is meant for taking the hardship in such a way that you have to walk and take all the hardships, whereby your karmas will be neutralized. You will reduce your karma, you will burn off your karmas. That's why they used to walk. That too, many times it is barefooted to get all the difficulties and go there and do all the puja, worship. Again, you will be removing your bad karmas. So now if you talk ill of others, paraninda, paracharcha, talking the negative features of others, as Holy Mother used to tell, when you talk ill of others, first you have to relieve it. You have to first undergo all that the other people has committed, the sins, the sinful act. You will be reliving it in your own mind and in your talk. That means you are committing that sin again in your mind. So you will be accruing that sin on yourself. To some portion of the sin will come to you. There is a saying in India, whatever the people, other people who have really physically committed some sins will go to the people who talk about it. A beautiful arrangement has been done by the nature. How will those sinners will be put out of that sin? The beautiful method is those people who talk about that sin will be sharing all the sins they have done. So you should be very, very careful what you talk, what do you discuss. The more you discuss about the negative things of others, the more you are not only getting that character Another thing, you will be sharing the sins of those people. That's why here, all the ladies in Kamarpukur who are going to visit Vishalakshi, what would they do on their way while walking? Not gossip, chit chat, but sing songs, tell stories about the first appearance and self revelation of the goddess, and travel across the fields without fear. So that is how, wherever we have to go, even while going in the traffic jam, if you are moving with somebody else, if you are alone, well and good, then you can hear the bhajans, you can hear the lectures, you can hear the harikatha. There'll be so many such things for you to hear when you are alone. When you are with somebody, discuss something good things, speak good things, speak of God, speak of something spiritual. That is the way by which we can spend our time. So now this is a lesson for us. So the ladies, while they were going to visit the Divine Mother to keep their mind at a high state in the pilgrimage, they used to be all discussing about telling the stories about the first appearance of the self revelation of the goddess and singing songs and travel across the field without fear. Kamarpukur and the neighboring villages were more populous and prosperous during the master's childhood than now. This become evident to us when we find the deserted, broken, brick built houses overgrown with jungles, dilapidated and decayed temples, the platform of religious dances, and the like. Therefore, we infer that the pilgrims to the goddess at Anu were then very numerous. So, a lot of people used to visit the Mother, Divine Mother. Vishalakshi was very living presence. Many places you can see the deities will be very living. That's why many people go there and get their prayers answered very quickly. But we also come to know a little more about this Anur Vishalakshi. It is difficult to ascertain whether the name of the goddess is Vishalakshi or Vishalakshmi or Vishalakshi. Vishahari is another name of the goddess Manasa, Manasa Devi. In North India, in all of the India, Divine Mother is worshipped. The snake goddess is called Manasa Devi, the mother who controls all the microbes, all the diseases brought about by the bacteria, viruses. That mother is called as Shitala Devi. You know, the Divine Mother, the deity of the house deity, family deity of Ramakrishna's was Shitala Devi. They used to worship her in that pot. Now, this Manasa Devi is the goddess of snake. So she is thought to be the daughter of Shiva. So Manasa Devi is the goddess of snakes, all the snakes and other poisonous underground organisms or reptiles like snakes, scorpions, which live underground. So she is the controller, she is the divine mother who controls them. So she is called Manasa Devi. So in every village they worship in North India as this Manasa Devi. If you come to South India, it will be Naga Devata. The snakes will be worshipped. You know, recently it was Naga Panchami. The snakes will be worshipped for fertility, for getting married, for having children, and other things, whatever the people they have to fulfill their desires, they worship these demigods and goddesses. So Manasa Devi is such goddess, an aspect of Divine Mother. She is the goddess of snakes. So if you go to Haridwar also, you can find one hillock, big hillock. It's called Manasa Pahad. Then there is another Chandi Pahad. So this Manasa Devi is the goddess of the snakes. Here, our Shardanandaji Maharaj is giving a footnote where he is telling it is difficult to ascertain whether the name of the goddess is Vishalakshmi or Vishalakshi. Then Vishahari, the taker, the person who takes away the poisons when bitten by snakes or anything, if you propitiate her, can also be called Vishahari. Is another name of the goddess Manasa Devi, met with an within ancient Bengali books. This word Vishahari may easily be transformed into Vishalakshmi. Again, in describing the form of Manasa, the word Vishalakshmi is used in the books like the Manasa Mangala. So Manasa is perhaps Vishalakshmi or Vishalakshi. The worship of the goddess is seen in many places. We saw a beautiful temple of that goddess on our way from Kamarpukur to Ghatal. We were convinced that there had been a very good arrangement for worship there. When we saw the music hall, the tank, the garden, etc., attached to the temple. So, something about this Manasa Devi or Vishalakshi, how did she come and started residing in this place near Kamarpukur? All the stories are the Sthala Purana, the Mahima, all those things will be repeated in the form of folklore, songs, and different other stories. So that is told about here. Who is this Vishalakshi? So the goddess resides in the field under the open sky. Here in Vishalakshi or in Anur, this divine mother Vishalakshi goddess resides in the open field, no temple or any covering, under the open sky. The cultivators build every year an ordinary covering of leaf. So it is just a leaf structure with the coconut leaf or with the what do you call the haystack covering it, just like a cottage. It will be open. So the cultivators around this village will build every year an ordinary covering of leaves to protect the place from rain and sun. There is an indication in the neighboring heap of ruins that there was a brick built temple at one time. When asked about it, the villagers say that the goddess broke it down of her own accord. They narrate a story. And what is that story about this Mother Vishalakshi? The cowherd boys of the village are dear companions of the goddess. So this goddess Vishalakshi likes to play with the cowherd boys, the shepherds, the cowherds were grazing the cows and the sheep, goats, and other animals, the farmers. So they used to come look after the animals. They used to do the work. So when the work is over, when they are free, they come here. They worship the Divine Mother. They play with the Divine Mother. So the Divine Mother was very happy to play with these cowherds, the farmers, the farmer boys, the children of the farmers. The cowherd boys of the village are the dear companions of this goddess. They come there in the morning. The cowherd boys let loose the cows and sit there. They tell stories, sing song, and play games. They pluck wild flowers and decorate her, the Divine Mother. There may be in some sort of a what do you call the mud structure there, or it looks like a anthill or something like that. Whatever the Divine Mother is worshipped there with some images. So these boys they used to come, play, sing, and also worship with wild flowers in their own way. They used to worship Divine Mother, play with her. So they sit there, they tell stories, sing songs, and play games. They pluck wildflowers and decorate her. Then they take the money and the sweets offered to the goddess by the pilgrims and wayfarers and enjoy themselves. Out of that, they used to bring something, eatables, and give it to mother. They used to offer it to mother, and they used to enjoy those things while they used to graze the cows. She cannot do without their sweet pranks. The mother there, Vishalakshi, was residing there, was so fond of these cowherd children, poor children, that she couldn't do without the pranks, the games, the puja, the play of these small children. She cannot do without their sweet pranks. Once a rich man of a village, having had his desire fulfilled. See, in India, there is a custom. What is that custom? In different places, it is called and by different name. So, votaries, suppose they have a desire to fulfill or they have some problem. So, such living deities, they go there and they do the sankalpa. They will tell, "Oh, Divine Mother," or the particular goddess there, they will address and tell that if you cure that disease, if you solve this problem, if you give me this desire, because many people, their daughters will not be married, they will have some diseases, or the children, they will not have some children, or even if they have children, the children will be having so many problems, so many different problems. You know, all the people will have, householders will have a lot of problems. Everybody in the world will have problem. So now these goddesses or these gods who are residing there in the villages, if you go, and they will tell, if I'm cured of this disease, or if my child gets all right, or the child is get married, or if all other different desires are fulfilled, I'm going to come and give you this much amount of money, or I'm going to make some sweets and offer it to you. So like that, in their poor own way, in their very little simple own way, people offer their votaries. They will just offer that we will do like this. We are going to give you back like this. Please help us. So that is the way. So then, when their problems are solved, those people will come and keep up their promise. They will either offer the sweets, whatever little they have, sankalpa, they have decided in their mind, they will do that, offer it to Mother, do the worship in their simple own way, and go away. So that is a system. Even now, it is followed in India. And even Holy Mother used to tell that you can do such worship even to Ramakrishna. We have a doubt that Ramakrishna will not accept such worships. Ramakrishna is too high, he will be in samadhi. It isn't like that people will have come with some desires. So such things will be there in our mind. Don't have any such things. Whatever, in a simple way, simple heart, you go and do that to Sri Ramakrishna. You can even go, and Mother Sharda Devi has told at one place that you can do this such type of vows. So you can go offer to Ramakrishna, this is my problem. If it is solved, oh Ramakrishna, I'm going to offer you this thing. I'm going to give you this sweet. So in a simple way, you need not do something very high, according to your capacity. I'm not telling you this. This is told by Holy Mother. You can pray to Ramakrishna in this way. He will come to any level. If you are a very high spiritual aspirant, then you can only ask for enlightenment, knowledge, vairagya, discrimination, devotion. Yeah, but we are all ordinary people. We have ordinary problems, so many problems. You can go to Sri Ramakrishna and make these vows, then you can get your desires fulfilled. This is Ramakrishna will approach you in any way you like, whatever way. Ye yathamam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham. That is the words of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. That in whatever way you approach me, I will come to you in the same manner. So I will just tell you an incident from the life of Girish Chandra Ghosh. There is there a new book by Revered Chetanananda Ji Maharaj from St. Louis in America, USA, has published that very big book of Girish Chandra Ghosh. In that one incident is, Girish Chandra Ghosh used to come to Belur Math very frequently. He was a great man of faith in Ramakrishna, so much so that he was an epitome. He was an ideal for faith. So he had so much faith in Sri Ramakrishna. So he used to come. So one of the workers who was very close to Girish Chandra Ghosh there in the Belur Math came to him and told his problem. What happened to you? He had some pain. Morning, while I was taking bath, I slipped and fell down, and my joint, that hand will be joined to our body, and the joint got dislocated. So I'm in pain, lot of pain. What shall I do? Is it? You're dislocated your arms. Don't worry. Go to Sri Ramakrishna. Tell him mentally. You need not give him anything. Mentally you offer one bowl of rasagulla. It's a sweet syrup made out of this milk cheese balls soaked in sugar syrup. It will be very tasty. It's a very special dish in Bengal, Orissa, Assam, and all North India. You have that. And now it is found everywhere in India. Rasgulla, special rasgullas. So you will offer small, maybe 5 or 6 in a small bowl, modern earthen bowl. Even go to Bengal. That earthen bowls will be given in earthen bowl, that matki. So you offer that, you mentally offer that to Ramakrishna. Not physically, you need not. Mentally offer and do a prayer that if this pain goes away, if I become all right, oh Ramakrishna, I'm going to offer this Rasgulla. Then he told, okay, I will do it. He went to Ramakrishna and did an offering and told, if my this pain goes away, I'm going to offer you like this. Please help me. Then the next day, Girish Chandra Ghosh, when he came to Belur Math, then he went to that person to see what has happened to him. Then he talked to him. What happened? Did your pain go away? What happened to your dislocated hands, arms? Then he told Girish Chandra Ghosh, Babu, the next day I was taking bath and again I fell down. Fell down on the same posture and I was hurt on the same posture again. Girish Chandra Ghosh was little disturbed. Then what happened? Then because of that jolt and pain, that which is dislocated, the arms which were dislocated, got located again and became normal. I had a fall again. I fell on the same arms, and that arm which was dislocated, now because of the fall, I got located that arms, and now I'm all right. Then Girish was very happy. Go, rush. Really, now purchase a matki or a small bowl of rasgulla and offer it to the Lord. Then that worker went and offered. This is there in the life of Girish Chandra Ghosh. If you have time, you can get that very big book of Girish Chandra Ghosh, has been published by our Chetananandaji Maharaj. It is there. This incident is there. So you can approach the Lord in a simple way, in any way you like. The Lord is so compassionate, He will come to you in whatever way you approach. So this is also one of the ways in India they do that. They vow, they do the sankalpa that I have these problems. So please take away this problem, help me. Then I'm going to offer you such things. I'm going to offer you these things. Please accept that and take away my problem. These are the ways by which people offer to the Lord. So likewise, here, this especially in this living goddess that Vishalakshi, many people used to go and offer such things. When their problems is solved, they will come back and do something to the Divine Mother. They in their own ways. But here, this landlord was quite rich. He had some problem. He had vowed to the Divine Mother that if my problems are solved, I'm going to do something to you there. Then after his problem was solved, maybe he fulfilled that vow. But he was also very much more, because he was quite rich. He was a landlord. So what did he do? He wanted to do something more. So in this story, the cowherd boys, they used to come and play with mother. This villager, this landlord, after his desire was fulfilled, once a rich man of a village, having had his desire fulfilled, built the temple. He built a temple. He was so much happy that the mother has fulfilled his desire. So not only fulfilled his vow, whatever little he had offered, he built a temple to her. He built a temple to the mother. Having his desire fulfilled, that rich man built the temple and installed the goddess in it. So he bought a beautiful image and he bought all the priests and installed that image and made quite a big temple there. The temple priest came as usual every morning and evening to perform the worship now. Now it is locked up. The Divine Mother is locked up inside. So every evening he will lock the gates of the temple and go away. There will be the image, there will be the decoration, so many things inside. And the priest will come, he will do the puja, open the door early in the morning. Then in the evening, he will lock it. In the noontime, he will lock it and go away. All the offerings will be received there, put into that money collection box or hoodie, whatever they call. And after that, the offerings are also inside, and that will be taken by the priest and distributed, done something. So now what happened? What was the problem? He installed, the rich man installed the Divine Mother there, and the temple was constructed, and he installed the goddess in it. The temple priest came as usual every morning and evening to perform the worship, but he now closed the door of the temple when he went away from the after the worship. Those who came to pay obeisance at times other than those of worship offered their respectful presents to the deity through the trellis of the doors. Consequently, what was the problem? The cowherd boys could no longer collect the money, buy sweets, offer them to the goddess, and do their simple worship. the cowherd boys, these children, they could no longer approach the Divine Mother. They used to be doing pranams from far off. They can't enter. They can't go near the temple. Even if they go, they have to see the Divine Mother from far off. They can't take the money and bring objects and some things and offer it to the Divine Mother, decorate her in their own way. They couldn't play with the Divine Mother. So the cowherd boys were very much upset. They felt very sad that they can't do the worship of their mother in their own way. They were very much disturbed. The cowherd boys were very pained. Consequently, the cowherd boys could no longer collect the money, buy sweets, offer them to the goddess, eat them, and make merry and play with the Divine Mother. Grieved in their hearts, they prayed imploringly to the Divine Mother. They prayed to Divine Mother. O Mother, you have deprived us of your feast. You have deprived us of our feast. Your money enabled us to have sweets daily. Who will now give us these things to eat? The simple prayer of the children, the cowherd boys, were heard. The goddess, the villagers said, heard the complaint of the simple-hearted peasant boys. And the temple developed such a big crack that very night that the next day the priest brought out the goddess hurriedly and placed her in the open, lest the image should be buried under the debris of the temple. Since then, whoever has tried to build the temple again has been apprised in dreams or otherwise by the goddess that it is not to her liking. Do not build a temple to me. I want to be with these simple children, the cowherd children. I want to accept their worship. I want to play with them. I want to be with them. Do not build a temple to me. I don't want that. I want the simple-hearted, the cowherd boys to play with me, and their puja, I will accept their puja, their offerings. So they should be happy. So don't build a temple to me. So Divine Mother used to tell people through different ways. Since then, whoever has tried to build the temple again has been apprised in dreams or otherwise by the goddess that it is not to her liking. The villagers say that some of them were even threatened and deterred from it by the goddess. She said to them in a dream, I am all right here in the midst of the fields without a temple in the open and playing with the cowherd boys and accepting their worship. If you confine me in a temple, I will ruin you. Do not confine me in a temple. I want to be with these small children. I want to accept their simple worship. I want to play with them. So if you build a temple and try to lock me up in the temple, then I'm going to ruin you. I will not keep any of your family alive. Be careful, don't build a temple to me. I want to be with these children. The master was 8-year-old. He had not yet been invested with the sacred thread. One day, many ladies of respectable families of the villages went through the fields in a group in the aforesaid manner to fulfill their promise of offerings to Vishalakshi. Amongst them were 1 or 2 ladies of the master's own family, and also Prasanna, the widowed sister of Dharmadas Laha. We have come to know about Dharmadas Laha, the rich family there, the businessman there in that village Kamarpukur. So that one of the family, that was Prasanna, the widowed sister of Dharmadas Laha, who was very, very religious, and she had gone forward in spiritual life by her simple devotion. So she was very high aspirant. So that Prasanna was also there in that group. The master had a high opinion of her purity. This woman, this mother called Prasanna, the widowed sister of Dharmadas Laha, Ramakrishna himself used to tell very highly about her spiritual life, her purity. He also spoke of Prasanna from time to time to his woman devotees. Prasanna too had a genuine affection for the master from his childhood. She looked upon Ramakrishna, that boy Gadadhar, in his childhood. She looked upon him very often as God himself. As a simple-hearted woman, she was charmed to hear the holy stories of gods and goddesses and devotional songs from him. She would now and again affectionately ask him, Gadai, why is it that you often seem to me to God himself? For me, I can see that you are God yourself. So why is that? How is that? Are you really the incarnation of God? I feel that you are God yourself. when she would now and then affectionately ask Gadadhar, Gadai, why is it that you often seem to me to be God Himself? Yes, truly I feel so. Gadai heard it and smiled sweetly, but said nothing. Or he brought in various other topics and tried to evade the question. But Prasanna could not be evaded with those words. She said seriously, with a nod, whatever you may say, Gadai, you are not an ordinary mortal. Prasanna built a temple and installed in it the images of Radha and Krishna and used to do everything for their daily service herself. Dramatic performance with songs and dances were held in the temple on festive occasions. But Prasanna listened seldom to these songs. Asked about it, she would say, I have heard songs sung by the child Gadai, and no other song sounds so sweet. Gadai has spoilt my ears. Of course, these events are of a much later date. When he saw the ladies starting to go to this Vishalakshi temple 2 miles away as pilgrimage, walking and singing and taking the offerings for the doing for performing worship there, puja. When this Gadai saw the lady starting, the child Gadai said, I too shall go with you. He was 7 or 8 years old, and Gadai also wanted to accompany them. Gadai told, I will also join with you. Although the ladies objected to his going on the ground that the distance was too long for him, it is hot sun, and you are so small a child, and the heat would cause problem to you. You may faint, and you have to walk. You know the heat and sultry and the what do you call mm, the temperature, especially the humidity, the sultry atmosphere of Bengal. So you may get dehydrated. So in that sun, if you walk for such long distance, that to a small child like you. Now, although the ladies objected to his going on the ground that the distance was too long for him to walk, Gada stuck to his decision and started with them. He insisted, no, I will also join with you. I will also come with you. I have to have the darshan of the Divine Mother there, Vishalakshi. At this, the ladies were happy rather than annoyed. For who is not charmed by a child who is always cheerful and merry? Besides, even at that young age, Gadai had got by heart all the songs and verses about gods and goddesses. So he had memorized, he had got by heart all the songs and stories and verses about the gods and goddesses and also of Vishalakshi Mother. So on the way, he would certainly repeat a few of them at their request. Moreover, there would be no difficulty if he felt hungry while returning for them. There would be with them the offered articles of food, milk, etc. What could then be the objection? What was there to be annoyed at if Gadai went with them? Thus the ladies thought over the matter and without hesitation started on their journey with Gadadhar. And Gadai also went cheerfully with them, and as they expected, told stories and sang songs about gods and goddesses. But as he was singing the glory of Vishalakshi, when that boy Gadadhar, at the age of 7 or 8, he was singing with devotion, with his beautiful voice, the song of Mother Vishalakshi. So he became so much immersed in that thought, his mind got focused and concentrated so much so that an unexpected event happened before they had crossed the fields. The child stopped singing suddenly. His body and limbs became stiff and benumbed. Streams of tears flowed incessantly from his eyes, and he did not even reply to their repeated and affectionate calls. As to what ailed him, the ladies were apprehensive that the child, unaccustomed to walking distances, had a sunstroke. They bought water from a neighboring pond and poured a little on his head and sprinkled some on his eyes, but he did not regain consciousness. They were anxious and felt very helpless. What was the way out? How was the promised offering to be given and the worship of the goddess performed? Now, how shall they move forward to go to the temple? They can't. They can't leave Gadai here alone. So what are we to do now? And how was another's darling Gadai, the child darling of Chandramani Devi? to be taken home safe. There was not a single man anywhere in the neighborhood to help them. What was to be done? The ladies were in a great fix and forgot all about gods and goddesses. They sat round the child and sometimes fanned him, sometimes sprinkled water on him, and again called him by his name. Nothing happened. A short time passed this way when Prasanna, the sister of Dharmadas Laha, the widowed lady, was very pure and very devoted, was a very high spiritual aspirant, felt suddenly in her heart, can't it be that an ecstatic influence of the goddess Vishalakshi has come on the simple hearted and devoted child? Here, have I heard, have I not heard it said that the ecstatic influence of deities come on men, women, and children who are pure and simple hearted? Like him, Prasanna expressed this thought of hers to the other ladies and asked them to repeat with concentrated minds the name of Vishalakshi. Instead of calling Gadai, address Vishalakshi. She might have come and manifested herself in this pure child because she loved that children. So now Gadadhar is the avatara. So now she has come and manifested herself in this pure body of Gadadhar. So now instead of addressing Gadadhar as Gadai, let us address him as Vishalakshi and pray, sing the name of Divine Mother. The ladies had reverence for Prasanna on account of her pure character. They readily believed her words and addressed this boy, Gadai, as goddess Vishalakshi and said again and again, O Mother Vishalakshi, be pleased, save us, Mother. Please be compassionate to us. Take us to a safe heaven, Mother. Now, when they prayed like that in the name of Vishalakshi, addressing Gadadhar, not as Gadadhar, but Vishalakshi, wonder of wonders. No sooner had they called on the name of the goddess a few times than the face of Gadadhar brightened up with a sweet smile and signs of a slight external consciousness were seen. They felt reassured and were certain that an ecstatic influence of the goddess had come upon the child. They saluted him again and again, addressed him as the mother, and prayed to him. So some say women, out of the intensity of devotion, offered the boy the articles they had carried for the goddess. They even offered all those things to Gadadhar himself because the mother had manifested through him. A trading class originally trade vanikas in gold suvarna. Now, some of them belong to that group. So they offered worship duly. Now, what did these women do? Wonders of wonders, no sooner had they called on the name of the goddess a few times than the face of Gadai brightened up with a sweet smile. Signs of slight external consciousness were seen. They felt reassured and were certain that an ecstatic influence of the goddess had come upon that child. They saluted him again and again, addressed him as mother, and prayed to him. The child regained external consciousness by degrees and was in his normal state again. But strange to say, no fatigue, no weakness was observed in his body owing to the change which had come on him just a little while before. With overflowing devotion, the ladies then arrived at the place of goddess with Gadadhar. They offered the worship duly, returned home, and told everything to his mother. But the mother was frightened. As usual, the feeling of the mother will be like that, oh, something has happened to my child. So Mother Chandramani Devi, when they told her, she was frightened and offered that day a special worship to Raghuvira for the good of Gadadhar. She offered salutations to Vishalakshi and vowed a special worship to her also. See, even Mother Chandramani Devi was following this method, the simple village method of worshipping the deities. She not only, when she heard that Gadadhar was in that state, she thought something happened to my dear Gadadhar, darling Gadadhar. So she first offered the sweets to Raghuvira, the family deity. So what did she do? She got frightened and offered that day a special worship to Raghuvir for the good of Gadadhar. She offered salutations to Vishalakshi and vowed, again, that system of vowing something. She vowed a special worship to her also. So if my child comes out of this trouble, she thought It was a trouble to the child. She didn't know what really happened. Simple-hearted Chandramani Devi vowed even to Vishalakshi and offered her praise to Raghuveer too. This was the way our Indian women, even now, in olden days and in future too, simple-hearted women of India, they do the worship, they believe, they have so much faith, and they get the answers too. They get quick answers too. It's all the devotion, it's your faith. Another event in the life of Sri Ramakrishna bears ample testimony to the fact that since childhood he ascended to high spiritual planes at times. It happened thus. Now, anyhow, in the introduction, we got an aspect of the life of Sri Ramakrishna itself. But now, because we have to go to the other part where we had left behind the life of Sri Ramakrishna, we'll stop the introduction. All this came in the introduction to the incarnation as a divine sadhaka. We shall now go to the first 4 years of sadhana, where now Ramakrishna is doing his sadhana, the first 4 years of sadhana, the initial stages of his spiritual practices. Yeah, yesterday we were looking into the Dasya Bhakti, approaching God in the form of establishing the relationship as I, the devotee, will be the servant and the Lord my master. So that's called Dasya Bhava. There are Pancha Bhavas. You can also characterize and bring in so many other Bhavas into these things. So now Ramakrishna started in this Bhava, that is, Bhava means attitude towards God, establishing the relationship with God as I am the servant and God is the master. So that is the Dasya Bhava, the epitome or the ideal for this Dasya Bhava is Hanuman. So Ramakrishna started practicing this sadhana as Hanuman. He not only just had it in his mind, he also physically. See, whatever Ramakrishna used to take up, used to not just do it at the mental level. Most of us do it at the mental level, satisfied with that. But Ramakrishna couldn't do that. Kaya, Vacha, Manasa. Speech, actions and thoughts all together. So even in the externals too, he used to follow that. Not only the internal meditation or internal worship, externally too, he became just like Hanuman. He also, yesterday, how he changed even his dress, he used to live on the tree. The master said that thinking of Mahavir incessantly at that time, he became so much absorbed that he forgot altogether for some time his separate existence and individuality. He lost his ego and selfishness or anything that he was such and such a person, completely identified himself with Hanuman. Altogether for some time, his separate existence and individuality was lost. At that time, said the master, I had to walk, take my food and do all other actions like Mahavira. So you should not confuse it as monkey. It is something like Vanaram is something like human being and monkey. It's not monkeys. I had to walk, take my food and do all other actions like Mahavir. I did not do so of my own accord, but the actions so happened of themselves. I tied my cloth around my waist so that it might look like a tail and moved about jumping. I ate nothing but fruits and roots, which again I did not feel inclined to eat when skinned. I spent much of my time on trees and always cried, Raghuvira, Raghuvira, Rama, 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 with a deep voice. But my eyes assumed a restless expression like that of the animals of that species. And strange to say, the lower end of the backbone coccyx lengthened at that time by nearly an inch. When we heard the last mentioned fact, we asked Sri Ramakrishna at that time when they used to come as used to Sri Ramakrishna, that was Ramakrishna maybe was at that time something of the age of 40 or so. Sir, does that part of your body continue to be even so now? To which Sri Ramakrishna replied, no. In course of time, it assumed slowly its previous natural size when the mastery of that mode of the Dasya Bhava over the mind had ceased. An extraordinary vision and experience came to pass in the life of Master when he practiced this Dasya Bhava? What was the culmination? That is also very important, isn't it? You have seen how Ramakrishna would not only internally practice that bhava, that attitude, but also externally, he just like Hanuman started practicing that Dasya Bhava to Ramachandra and wanted to realize Ramachandra, have the vision of Ramachandra. So now what happened? As a culmination, what was the end of the Dasya Bhava? So what happened was an extraordinary vision and experience. What was that? That vision and experience was so novel. That the experience and the vision was so novel, so different from his previous ones. Earlier, he had so many different visions of gods and goddesses. But this particular experience was very novel. After the culmination, the end of the Dasya Bhava, that vision and experience was so novel, so different from his previous ones. And it was deeply imprinted in his mind and was always fresh in his memory. He said, one day at that time, I was sitting under the Panchavati, not meditating, merely sitting. While I was performing this Dasya Bhava, at the end of that Dasya Bhava, that sadhana, one day I was sitting under the Panchavati, not meditating, but merely looking here and there and sitting there, when an incomparable effulgent, when an incomparable effulgent female figure appeared before me. So just meditate on that, think on that. You have to go deep and see, because Ramakrishna is having a beautiful experience after that Dasya Bhava. After all this sadhana, what is that? One day at the time I was sitting under the Panchavati, not meditating, with my open eyes, merely sitting, when an incomparable, should note it, you have to feel it, incomparable, effulgent female figure appeared before me. And what happened? Illumining the whole place. I'll read it again because you have to feel it. You have to keep that in your mind, deeply imprinted in your mind. So I'm going to repeat it again. This is not just like the vision inside your heart or in the opening your mind's eye, the Divya Chakshu, but this is seen by his senses, the open eyes. He could see it. He was just sitting on Panchavati and he's seeing everything there. At that time, he had a vision, not a vision, but really what happened? He said, one day at the time I was sitting under the Panchavati, not meditating, merely sitting, when an incomparable, can't compare the beauty of the Divine Mother, incomparable, effulgent female figure appeared before me, illumining the whole place. Because of the presence of the Divine Mother there, the female figure, the effulgent, the incomparable beauty, the whole place was illumined. It was not the figure alone that I saw then, but also I saw the trees around and the plants of the Panchavati, the Ganga and all the objects. Nothing was missing, everything was there. In the midst of that, I was seeing everything. I saw that the figure was that of a woman, for there were in her no signs of a goddess. Just like you will have divine different ornaments, divine crown, you will have so many other arms, there will be so many hands. Now Durga will have Dashabhuja, Ashtabhuja, Mother Kali will have thousands of hands, thousands of heads. Like that, she was looking like an ordinary woman, no such special features of divinity or divine thing. She looked like an ordinary woman, but there was that beautiful, incomparable beauty. The whole place was illumined by her presence. I saw that figure was that of a woman, for there were in her no signs of a goddess, such as the position of 3 eyes, etc., multiple hands, so many arms in the hands, Trishula, Chakra, Sword, Damaru, nothing but the extraordinary, spirited, and solemn expression of that face, that incomparable beauty of her face. What was her? How is Ramakrishna expressing that? Because he is seeing it. He's telling the extraordinary, spirited, and solemn expression of that face love, manifesting love, sorrow, compassion, and endurance was not generally seen even in the figure of any goddesses. Those beautiful qualities expressed in a face, what are those beautiful qualities? Extraordinary, spirited, solemn expression of that face, manifesting love, manifesting sorrow, manifesting compassion, and manifesting endurance, titiksha, sahanam, was not generally seen even in the figure of any goddesses. That expression couldn't be seen even in any goddesses. That was the beauty of the face of that divine mother, looking graciously at me. That woman looking graciously at me. That goddess woman was advancing from north to south towards me. That goddess woman was advancing from north to south towards me with a slow, grave gait. With a slow, grave gait, I wondered who she might be. Ramakrishna sitting there looking at it, he was wondering. I wondered who she might be. And suddenly, a black faced monkey came suddenly. Nobody knows whence and where from, and fell prostrate at her feet. A big monkey with a black face from nowhere, that suddenly it came, nobody knew whence, and fell prostrate at her feet. And now someone within my mind exclaimed, Ramakrishna is telling. So someone within my mind exclaimed. What did it exclaim? Sita, Sita, Mother Sita. It is Mother Sita, who was all sorrow all her life. She had to undergo so much of sorrow in the 14 years of exile and the 10 months in the Ashokavana. And after that too, she had to bear so much of troubles. So she was endurance of sorrow and sorrow. That divine Mother Sita. So somebody told me in my heart, it is Mother Sita. Sita was all sorrow all her life. Sita, the daughter of King Janaka. Sita, to whom Rama was her very, very life. Sita, to whom Rama was her very life. Saying now Ramakrishna, Mother, Mother Sita, Mother, Mother, repeatedly. I was then going to fling myself. I was about to fling myself at her feet. Ramakrishna doesn't care for the pain of his body or something will happen. When he saw the Divine Mother, he just wanted to fling himself at the feet of the Mother. He stood up and he wanted to fall flat. That's why in pranamas there are varieties of pranams. We close our hands like this in Anjali. That is one of the pranam. So if you do Anjali at this heart, it is for something. Then at the Vishuddha Chakra, it is for something else. At the Agna Chakra, it is different. But if you do for the Gurus and to the Parabrahma, or the highest Godhead, you have to do at the Turiya. This is the Turiya, Sahasra Chakra. This is another way of doing pranam, highest. So to the Guru and to the this thing, they do like this. And if you are too much of more reverence, then you fall down flat. So that is called Sashtanga Pranam. What is Sashtanga Pranam? Sa Ashta Anga. All your 8 limbs, the chest, the head, the chin, the arms, the palms, the legs, the waist, the stomach, everything, 8 limbs on the ground. That is Sa Ashta Anga. All the 8 limbs will be made to fall down in prostration. That is Sashtanga Pranam. There is one more pranam. It's called Dirgha Danda Pranam. What is that Dirgha Danda? Danda means a stick. Dirgha means a long stick. Suppose now you don't have even to see what are my 8 limbs. I'm going to offer my 8 limbs. No time and no this thing. So much of exuberance of devotion that just like a stick, a long stick, Dirgha Danda, it falls down complete. Whether it will break or not, it is not bothered. It just surrenders. So that is called Dirgha Danda Pranam. So many like that pranams are there. This is one of them. Now you can see something like that Dirgha Danda. Now Ramakrishna, what did he do? He wanted to fling himself at the feet of the Divine Mother Sita. Sita, who was all sorrow all her life, Mother Sita, the daughter of King Janaka, Sita, to whom Rama was very life, saying, Mother Sita, Mother, Ma Sita, repeatedly. I was then going to fling myself at her feet. Fling. It doesn't care whether my hands will break or my fingers will break, my head will be hurt. No. Wanted to fling. I have seen that. Not that this decision. I have seen somebody falling like that, flinging at my feet. How? When I was looking after the educational institution, one of the student, because he was always rank scoring, always in the first rank, second rank, used to score 99%, 98%. So somehow in the first chemistry, he lost 6 marks. So I thought he will lose his rank, the first rank and second rank. So we couldn't face. Would have got more, 95%, 96%. But fearing that he was lose his first rank and second rank, he ran away. That boy ran away. Somewhere, escaped somewhere, went away because of that fear that he will lose his rank. He couldn't face failures. Then we had to search for 3 days. We searched here and there, and finally we found him. But before that, when we informed the parents came running. And I've seen that. I still remember. Father, when he saw me, was so much pained that his son is lost, gone somewhere. So he wanted his son back. He just flung his body at my feet. Thud, he fell. I just remember it. He thud. The whole body fell down. It was hurt. He didn't care because he was so much feeling for the son, lost son. So the moment he looked at me, he wanted to express that sorrow in his heart, just flung. He fell with a thud. He was not caring whether he will be hurt or not. So much of love for his son. Just imagine if that is the care and that this thing, pain and that devotion, when it comes when he has lost the child. So you can see the Vyakulata. I just wanted to tell you, why did I tell you this? Why did I remember this? Experience was just to show you what is Vyakulata. Because he has lost his child. Want to gain back that child. He loves his son so much. He was found after 3 days, that's another thing. But at that time, how much he felt. That is the case with an ordinary son. And what about when you are seeing Mother Sita? What would be the feeling that might have come up in the heart of Ramakrishna at that time? He wanted to fling himself at the feet of Mother Sita. Don't care for your hurt body or eyes, what happens to your body. So much of exuberance of devotion. So he wanted, Ramakrishna is telling Mother Sita, Ma Sita, who was all sorrow all her life, Sita, the daughter of King Janaka, to whom Rama was her very life. Saying, Mother, repeatedly, I was then going to fling myself at her feet. When she came, suddenly she came, even before that, so fast, she came very fast, quickly, and entered this. Ramakrishna is telling, even before I wanted to fling myself at her feet, and she came so fast and entered this body, entered my body. Entered this, showing Ramakrishna had lost that ego sense, completely obliterated that ego sense. He couldn't call even himself I. The word, he couldn't use the word I. Still this body. So this is to show this, so that Divine Mother quickly came before he wanted to fling and entered the body of Ramakrishna. So saying, Mother, I was then about to fling myself at her feet when she came quickly and entered this, showing his own body. Overwhelmed with joy, she merged in this body. Overwhelmed with joy and wonder, I lost all consciousness and fell down. So that I had no other vision in that manner. I had different kind of vision. I used to travel to different locus, different worlds, different plane of existence. I could see there different varieties of gods and goddesses with so many hands, so many armaments, different faces, different ornaments, different armaments, so many hands, all those things, such beautiful face. But I had never until then had a vision like this live. It was at a different plane there, but here it is open with the eyes, with everything here, the plants, the Ganga, the Panchavati. So I never had any vision until then. After that, Master might have had it. But Ramakrishna is telling, I lost all consciousness and fell down. Before that, I had no other vision in that manner without meditating or thinking. So you have to clearly understand it. Such kind of a vision, until then he had not had so many other different kind of meditation, distinct visions in the experiences in meditation and in thinking. But I had no other vision in that manner without meditating or thinking. That was the first vision of its kind. I have been, after that, should note it, after that, I have been suffering like Sita all my life. After that, I have been suffering like Sita all my life, perhaps because my first vision with the naked eye was of her. Sita, whose life from the start was a bundle of sufferings. Shri Mother Sita, the author said to some, including the translator, Shardanandaji Maharaj, had heard from Master and he told this to us. Now this book is translated, which is in Bengali by Shardanandaji Maharaj, is translated by Swami Jagadananda, another realized soul, who was also a disciple of a direct disciple, Jagadananda, who has translated this into English. So he is narrating in a footnote here telling that Shardanandaji had told them, narrated it to them. Sri Sita, the author said to some, including the translator, that is Jagadanandaji, made a gift of her smile, a beautiful smile of Mother Sita, gift of her smile to the Master, to Sri Ramakrishna. So those who saw the Master smile knew how Mother Sita smiled. You have to feel it, it is just feeling. You have to feel. If you see the face, the smile of Ramakrishna, you could see the smile of Mother Sita. You can understand how Sita was. You can understand what was Sita's endurance, Sahana, how much she had to undergo troubles in exile with that Ravana kidnapped her. She was always remembering Rama and how much she has to endure. And that mother's, Ramakrishna is telling, that was the first vision of his kind. I have been suffering like Mother Sita all my life. See, you tell Avatar Purusha is God and he has come here and you'll be all enjoying. No, Ramakrishna is telling, I have been suffering like Mother Sita all my life. Even Mother Sita had the suffering. The Avatara, the Shakti of the Avatara, Ramachandra, she had suffering all her life. And Ramakrishna also had suffering all his life after that. Even before that, he had to undergo so much of suffering to do the sadhana. Why? They suffer because of us so that we should not suffer. They suffer, their suffering is because that, so that we, their children, their devotees should not suffer. They have suffered for us. So I have been suffering, Ramakrishna is telling, like Mother Sita all my life. Perhaps because my first vision with the naked eye was that of her, Sita, whose life from the start was a bundle of sufferings. And now Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling to Jagadananda, and Jagadananda is writing, Sri Sita, the author said to some, including the translator, made a gift of her smile to the Master. So those who saw the mother smile knew how Mother Sita smiled. So now you can see what was the experience, the culmination of the Dasya Bhava. What Sri Ramakrishna had vision other than the vision of Sri Ramachandra. Now, one more thing which I want to tell you in this context is, whenever Sri Ramakrishna used to worship do the sadhana of different deities, gods or goddesses, to have their vision, or through different paths, when he used to realize that culmination or the end of that experience, or have the vision of the deity, that deity, the god or goddess, would merge in the body of Sri Ramakrishna. So what is that? So to note, suppose you are the devotee of certain god. You are doing the whole life, we may do sadhana and get the vision of that one deity. So what is the vision? What is the realization? What is the experience that you are having when you have the vision? What happens? You have to know what is that. That's why now I'm taking this opportunity of the master. Now we are learning something new. We are going to understand something new. By this experience of Sri Ramakrishna, we are going to understand something new. That's why I want to explain it to you. What is that? When, suppose, just imagine that somebody's Ishtadevata may be Ganesha, somebody's Ishtadevata may be Shiva, somebody's the personal that deity may be Mother Durga or Saraswati or Muruga, Kartikeya, or it may be Vishnu, Rama, Krishna, Narayana, whatever. Suppose, just imagine now, Hanuman. Now, let us imagine that somebody has the Ishtadevata as Ganesha. He's worshipping, he's meditating, he's doing puja of Ganesha, he's always thinking of Ganesha, reading about him, the Puranas of Ganesha. I'm just taking an example. That will be the common thing with all the other deities, all the other devotees too. So when we are meditating, when we are doing puja, when we are thinking of that God, when we are reading about that Purana, the different narratives or the life experiences of that particular deity, what is happening? That God is the manifestation of Parabrahma Swarupa, the highest. Is not a separate thing, entity. There are not many gods. It's one God, that is Parabrahma. Nirakar, Nirguna Parabrahma. The formless, the attributeless God. Out of compassion, he has taken all these different forms, 330 million forms, or it may be more. It will be more in future. So he's taken so many different forms. They are ideals. He sets some ideals, some principles, some beautiful character in perfection in front of us, so that we will be lifted up from this human level or the brute level to the human level, from the brute human level to the divine level. Why has the Lord taken that form? To raise us to his level, to take us to the divine level, to make us God. That is the secret behind, that is the thing which is happening. When we read, when we meditate, what are we doing? We like that deity because he has some special character in him. Suppose you like some hero in a movie or a film, or you like some person in your village or in your country. Why do you like him? Because he has some special character, some special feature, some special guna, which you don't have. So you like that because he has that special features, that character. And so you want to have that. So when you talk to him, when you go to him, when you read about him, so you are trying to get, what is that happening? You want to get those guna, those character into yourself. So when you are meditating upon Ganesha or any deity for that sake, when you are doing puja, when you are doing the worship, when you are reading about him, those characters are, those ideals which that Lord stands for, are slowly sinking into you. They're coming. It's a law of diffusion from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. So in the osmosis, there's you always take that water, reverse osmosis, RO. That's reverse osmosis. There will be a semi-permeable membrane, and through that, there will be water on either side, water or whatever liquid that this thing that will be flowing from there to here. That's called osmosis. It's a type of diffusion, whatever it might be. So from higher concentration to lower concentration. So what is that semi-permeable membrane? The faith, your devotion is that, and so it is flowing down. That character, that gunas of the deity is flowing down to you. So As and days goes on and you become more and more devoted, that means you are more and more assimilating that divine character of the deity. You are becoming one with the deity. You are raising yourself from this human animal level, brute level, to the human level, from the human level to that deity's level. So it is becoming that character, just like suppose there is a water in the tank and you are opening the tank here. So how much, what will there is no other effort for the water in the tank to move down, because until that water level is maintained, it goes on moving. So when it becomes equal, it stops. So likewise, that character that which the deity stands for, the beautiful character, the ideal which that Ganesha or for the Rama or Krishna stands for, completely comes to you. You become full and all that you become perfect. Then that is called realization. That is a vision. Then you have that vision of deity. What is that vision of the deity? When you have the vision of the deity, Holy Mother asks, do you grow two horns or do you get something special? No. What happens is you become one with the deity, all that character, all that guna, all your bad, negative characters like kama, krodha, mada, matsarya, all those things, greed, lust, anger, everything will vanish, and that beautiful, positive character of the deity will enter into you. And you become perfectly that particular deity. If I'm a devotee of Ganesha, I'll become perfect Ganesha. Either I will be rising to the level of Ganesha or Ganesha will come down to my level and I become Ganesha when I realize that God. Suppose you are a Bhakta of Ramachandra, all that beautiful character of Ganesha, Ramachandra will come to you, you become Ramachandra. A person who has realized God will become that particular deity. Any scriptural this thing to prove that? Yad bhavam tad bhavati. That's one of the thing. And another thing is Brahmavid Brahmaiva bhavati. The knower of Brahman, the knower of God will become God himself. This is a statement of scriptures. I am not telling something special from my imagination, figment of imagination. It's the words of the scriptures. Brahmavid Brahmaiva bhavati. The knower of God will become God himself. So that is realization. When you realize God, when you realize Ganapati, when you realize Ramachandra, when you realize Subramanya, when you realize Mother Durga, you become that deity. God will come to you. That those qualities in perfection, those character in perfection, that principles in perfection will come to you, become that deity. So now here, he realized Mother Sita. He had the vision, means what? Mother Sita merged in him. And now Ramakrishna has got the feature of Sita Swarupa. He realized Mother Kali in the beginning, Kali Swarupa. He realized Ramachandra in the Dasya Bhava, Ramachandra Swarupa. He realized Hanuman in that Hanuman Bhava, Hanuman Swarupa. Now you have learned two things. One is that what is realization, what is vision of God, what is happening behind the scene when you realize God, what is that beautiful qualities which are coming to you. How is that you are raising, giving up all that animal tendencies in you and rising to the human level, intellectual level. From the intellectual level, you are rising to the divine level. You are becoming the deity itself. So you come to know what is realization. What is that happening? What is spiritual life? And what is happening on the other side here in Ramakrishna when he's realizing all those deities, he's becoming that Swarupa. Now did you come to know why Swami Vivekananda called Ramakrishna as Sarvadeva Devi Swarupa? Got an idea? It's not that Ramakrishna is greater than all those deities, no. All the deities, no. He realized all the gods and goddesses and all the paths. That means all those deities are in him. All the principles which that deity stands for. It's not nothing like greater or higher or something. All that particular deity stands for. When he realized that deity, that character or the deity or that quality, that ideal became completely manifested in Ramakrishna. Or if you realize that is manifested in you too, Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. So that is why Ramakrishna is called Sarvadeva Dev. You want Sita, Mother Sita? Sita Swarupa, Sri Ramakrishna is there. You want Ramachandra? Ramachandra Swarupa is there. That ideal is there. You want Ganesha? Matru Bhakti? education, Vidya, goddess of Vidya, this is there. So now you might have got an inkling. As we go forward, we'll see all the different things again and again. Is Kali Swarupa, is Ramachandra Swarupa. Now, whatever he has realized is Vishalakshi Swarupa. Because he has realized that deity. He has thought and meditated on that and got all that ideals to him. Is now Sita Swarupa, is now Ramachandra Swarupa. Like that, whatever deity is now is going to realize, he is going through the different path and realizing. So he's becoming that. That's why Ramakrishna is called Sarvadeva Devi Swarupa. So we have learned so many things today about spiritual life through the life of Sri Ramakrishna. That is the reason why the Avatar Purusha, the Lord, comes in the taking the human form to show us what is real spiritual life. Meditation, what is meditation? You are meditating on the quality of that deity. And what will happen? Those qualities, those gunas, those ideals will sink into you. You become that. You start diffusing into you, diffusion. So that is spiritual life. So meditating on those qualities, the qualities are coming to you. So that is spiritual life. So we have learned so many things. Very good. Because now we have almost completed our time. We'll stop our discussion like that. We will go on seeing, studying, researching, discovering new things. What is spiritual life? Through the life of Sri Ramakrishna, study of this, we'll come to know what is the actual spiritual life, what is happening, what is the scientific thing which is happening, what is the logical thing, analytical thing. We'll analyze everything threadbare and understand. And so much of joy you see when you have the darshan of Mother Sita. You had the darshan of Mother Sita. A beautiful expression of the face of Sita. You had all that darshan, like that we would have. Enjoy the things. That is the speciality of reading this great master, Leela Prasanga. So you are only the few people who are getting up early in the morning and getting this joy. So that's wonderful. So now if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, you can now ask. Now the time for questions. Do you have any doubt or questions to ask on the today's discussion? I think everybody are silent. Maybe they are filled with the joy of having the vision of Mother Sita and Hanuman and Ramachandra and that Sarvadeva Devi Swarupa and that Vishalakshi. So nobody is willing to talk. If you just open your mouth to talk, all that peace and joy will be disturbed. So I think none of you want to talk or tell anything. So I will close this session with a closing prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Namaskar to all of you. So today evening we have the puja session, Science of Worship, at 6 o'clock South African time. Then tomorrow evening we have that's a Tuesday evening, we have the Vivek Chudamani, the Crucible of Discrimination. Then Wednesday we have the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, 59th verse. Thursday, Friday again we will be joining to have the discussion on the Great Master. Then Saturday evening we have the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, the 18th verse. So all are welcome to these discussions and raise up a mind and understand what is real spiritual life and go forward. We are all spiritual aspirants. We'll go forward by studying the life of Sri Ramakrishna. We're getting so much of solace, so much of Shraddha, faith, that we are all moving on the true spiritual path. Thank you. Namaste.